Hi there, I'm Milo Sipka, and this is the Apatros Review. Now this is the second of a total of 5 reviews I will ever do about films from the legendarily infamous hack Jess Franco, the guy who made at least 199 films, all of which were pretty much a bad. The 5 films I'm reviewing are all well known amongst Franco fans. The first one I did was The Girl from Rio, okay, Future Woman, which I covered a while ago. And fans of Euroschlock, and with the exception of Franco's infamously sloppy Oasis Zombies, are all pretty much from the early 1970s. The guy was known for putting out an average of 5 to 7 films a year when he was at his most prolific, and many of his films exist in so many different versions and cuts that anyone trying to compile the ultimate Franco 100% completist collection is quite simply a fool's errand. Some of these didn't even hit VHS, let alone DVD. The film I'm reviewing here is this: She Killed in Ecstasy. Now, this was a film. This is actually an erotic revenge thriller. Some people call it a horror film, but maybe. I personally call it a revenge thriller. And this was directed and written by Jess Franco. It starred Soledad Miranda, Fred Williams. Jess Franco also did an acting appearance in his own film. Paul Mueller, Eva Stromberg, Howard Vernon, and Horst Tappert. This film originally it's a co-production between West Germany and Spain. Jess Franco was Spanish, and it's dubbed in German. And this premiered in West Germany on the 10th of December 1971. For the Americans, this actually premiered on American DVD on the 26th of September 2000. Now, this was one of the number of films Franco made with his at the time top actress Soledad Miranda, right before Miranda was killed in a car crash while on her way to sign a lucrative deal with a German film studio that would have made a major star were she to live. As far as Franco was concerned, Miranda's loss was the gain of Lena Romay, a young actress who joined the Francoverse right afterwards, left her husband to marry Franco, and went on to work with Franco on 100 plus films, not to mention being more open to doing the kind of stuff Franco expected of actors when it came to the on-screen bedroom action. She was pretty open about her sexuality. She even appeared in the ultra-rare Spanish cut of Voices of the Zombies, which I happen to have a copy of, as well as being Franco's partner for the rest of their lives. Now, while She Killed in Ecstasy remains one of Jess Franco's most well-known films, and a key piece of the Franco cult, the kind of people who take Franco's films to be psychedelic artworks and not serious movies, so any criticism would be meaningless to them, it isn't exactly what I would call a good film per se. It does have most of the hallmarks of Franco's bad habits, but not his laziness. The writing of this one, which I'll spend a major portion of this review going over with the proverbial fine-tooth comb, is actually pretty damn sharp. But those who want to check out a Jess Franco film without having to wait for the entire damn maze of the Franco sewer will do best to start with this one. Dr. Johnson has just made a revolutionary discovery in the field of medical science, particularly in the area of hormone therapy. He has developed a hormone that will cure just about any disease and will also reverse the effects of aging on the human body's vital organs. He plans on becoming a big name in the medical community in Germany and joining the pantheon of great medical scientists, even hopefully earning a Nobel Prize for his efforts. However, there's one little problem with his research. Dr. Johnson has had derived his superhormone treatment from the bodies of human fetuses procured from abortions. Just because you coulda, doesn't mean you shoulda. The German Medical Committee learns the nasty truth of Johnson's experiments and brutally tear his research apart. They destroy his laboratory, verbally tear him a new asshole to the point he won't be able to sit down comfortably for a month, and as a coup de grace, strike him from the profession, meaning his days as a doctor are essentially over. With his work rejected, with extreme prejudice, and his reputation destroyed, the former Dr. Johnson retires to his island mansion and commits harakiri by slitting his wrists. But we wouldn't have a movie if that was only it. The nasty young piece of ass Johnson called a wife decides to avenge her late hubby by going after the 4 doctors who drove her hubby to ice himself, her modus operandi being to get each of them while they're alone, seduce them, and then murder them brutally while she's clearly getting off on the deed, before she plans to join her late husband in their bridal suite in hell by way of driving the car off a cliff with hubby's rotten corpse in the front passenger seat. What love does to some people. She Killed in Ecstasy can be fairly described as typical Franco garbage by many hardbrow critics, and some even call it sleazy, which is fitting given how many of Franco's films tend to feature sex-based exploitation thrills in them. What if only so slightly elevates this one to functional mediocrity is the weird morality that Franco was operating on when he wrote the script. Before I go any further with this review, I need to explain Franco's background first. The bloke was expelled from Catholic school at a young age, and once he started making movies, he quickly became a major thorn in the side of the Vatican, which named him as the most dangerous filmmaker of the 1970s, which is a way of saying that Franco hated the Catholic Church and did everything he could to show its bias in his movies. Now this particular movie is a key example of that, as Franco has the story's first act revolve around the widow of a scientist whose work used the product of abortions to develop a life-changing treatment, only to be barred from the profession due to what some people might perceive as moral high-handedness, deciding to enact her revenge on the doctors responsible for ruining her late husband's career and reputation by seducing them and sending them to the slab as brutally as she can manage. What makes this film interesting is that the film's point of view comes from the widow protagonist, as she starts the film doing a brief flashback to a wedding, to a hubby, followed by his disgrace at the hands of the four doctors who take him to task over his controversial research. The first act's morality, despite Franco's staging, is actually surprisingly good. The doctors managed to do their job and ban a person who had conducted unethical research from doing it any longer. In these post-COVID days, this film's message indeed has aged surprisingly well. To quote one of these doctors, to quote his words at the final hearing to condemn Dr. Johnson's actions: "As doctors and humanists, we must strongly condemn those who contravene ethics, the laws of humanity. Under the guise of science, fanatical doctors all too often don't even hesitate from committing criminal acts. These dreamers must be stopped. How is mankind to trust us if the charlatans amongst us, the unscrupulous criminals, are not excluded from our midst? Research allows these people too many opportunities. We are forced to defend ourselves with all the power we have available. Otherwise we dig our own grave. We must not turn a blind eye to the abuse committed in the name of medicine. The countless victims accuse us. We must not turn a deaf ear. We must try everything we can to protect people from dubious experiments. That's what we're sworn to do." Those words are from Professor Jonathan Walker in the year 1971. Who then becomes the first victim of this widow. Consider these four doctors the martyrs of mankind. So while Franco made a pretty damn solid point for medical ethics in spite of himself, the film is essentially telling the viewer to sympathize with the widow of an unethical doctor, cheering her on as she seduces each of the four doctors, three male and one female. Franco was just getting started adding lesbian content in his films by this point, in the process trying to make each doctor look like a hypocrite in their bedroom actions. The first victim, the one whose words I just mentioned, likes to be abused and sworn at by his female lovers. Personally, I don't think that is in any way indicative of a hypocrite. Many masochists tend to use their masochism to drive their ambition in making the world a better place. Which leads to the widow Johnson and slicing this poor schmuck's Johnson. I wonder what she'd do with it afterwards. The second doctor is the sole female in the group, and Franco frames her as a closet lesbian. Keeping in mind that homosexuality was not exactly openly accepted in the world in 1971, so if this doctor was part of the L in the LGB community, she had every reason to keep her sexuality hidden, because public exposure of that would most certainly have ended her career in the same way as Johnson's did. Of course, the end came through being suffocated with an inflatable vinyl pillow. This doctor is played by Eva Stromberg, who also appeared in Franco's masterpiece Vampires Lesbos, I use the word masterpiece loosely here, as the heroine of the piece opposite Sonda Miranda's lesbian vampire countess, which by the way came before this film, so this is essentially Miranda getting Stromberg some comic payback for stabbing her character in the eye with a silver stake in that one. The third and fourth doctors, the last one played by Jess Franco himself, as usual for the guy. He loves giving himself small roles in his films. Hey, they're his films after all. And the way he goes out in this film is quite a staging one, being bound to a chair and all. Now, those two doctors are more conventional seduce and destroy affairs, neither of them having any bedroom kinks to hide from the world. All of which occur while a typically inefficient police inspector tries to track down who's doing the killing. Only to arrive at Johnson's funeral cliff car ride, coming to the conclusion that since Mrs. Johnson was otherwise a normal woman, since her hubby's suicide had driven her to commit these unspeakable atrocities, it was all the fault of a dead man. Oh, fucking bollocks. So the film is pretty much a disappointingly mediocre film. The film's main plot is garbage in terms of motivation, but the initial act of morality that sets up the main plot is surprisingly admirable, and a case study of how professional doctors should behave. It is a lesson that we need to take heed of now in these days of questionable medical experiments and research. On a technical front, Jess Franco's infamous obsession with zoom lens on his film cameras is evident here, as half the shots involve some zooming, sometimes a detrimental effect, but not quite as bad as the hysterically awful crash scenes inflicted on West of the Zombies. And the film's trademark musical score that was composed by the same people who did the legendary score in Vampires Lesbos which it sounds exactly what you would hear if you watch 1970s porno while stoned out of your mind, it's fine to listen to at times, especially when the music seems quite inappropriate to the action being played out on screen. Think something along the lines of an Italian cannibal film scored with cheap jazz, and you'll get the general idea where this one's going. A final thing to note is that most of the main cast is dubbed over with German voice actors. Something I noticed when I was watching the scene where Dr. Johnson has his ass handed to him by superiors, and their lips didn't match the spoken words. I expected that from the Italians, but not from these people. So with that in mind, Sheep Kill and Ecstasy gets a D+, 3 out of 10 from me. A disappointing film that had some interesting elements in it, but was otherwise Jess Franco branded Euroschlock. Now for gore nudity. The gore is limited to some sparse use of theatrical stage blood cuts, while Eva Stromberg and Solomon Miranda show off their entire bodies. Miranda getting her birthday suit out several times, while Stromberg is only naked during her seduction/death scene. Now for the DVD. This is from Umbrella Entertainment. It's multi-zone, so you can play anywhere in the world. It's an NTSC, single-layer disc. It's got a 166 aspect ratio, anamorphic, German stereo 192 kilobyte range. Although it's mistakenly marked as English on the disc. English subtitles are burnt in and runs for 80 minutes 26 seconds in NTSC. It's uncut. There's no supplement here. There's also no proper menu on the disc or the static screen. I'll talk more about that later. The Australian DVD of Sheep Kill and Ecstasy was released onto the shelves by Umbrella Entertainment, our biggest boutique label, DVD label, and the go-to source for fans of both Euro horror and Euroschlock since the early 2000s. This disc was issued during a time when Umbrella's focus was primarily on Blu-rays, while the DVD components coming off at second best. All the supplemental material reserved for the Blu-ray, while the DVD only had the movie and perhaps maybe a trailer in rare cases. I personally remember feeling rather pissed off when I used to buy these DVDs and coming home to find that the Umbrella DVD I just bought didn't have any extras to enjoy, while Blu-ray fanatics were enjoying all the extras they could get their hands on. That time sucked. Anyway, this particular DVD had only a static screen with a picture derived from the DVD's front cover in the title, and the words play feature, which was not technically highlighted, but in order to play the film, you had to press the enter button on your remote in order to start the film. Once the film ended, the disc returned that screen. That was it, and you'd be damned if you expected anything more than that. As for the actual print quality, Umbrella was at their usual business, which was to say that their reputation for having the best quality film prints in the Australian boutique market still holds up well. The only times that Umbrella's quality dropped was purely due to factors they could not control. For example, a number of films that they could only source inferior quality prints, like VHS or whatever, the original prints being lost, and those are the only ones they could issue. So that there were rare cases where Umbrella's quality dipped, but that could be explained. Sheep Kill and Ecstasy had some grain due to the original source print, which is to be expected, while there's also some very rare print damage, consisting of white marks that come and go so quick you'll not notice them unless you're particularly observant. But for a film that is now roughly 52 years old and shown in the market where film technical quality wasn't exactly top priority, well, you can't fault Umbrella for that. At least the film is also completely uncut, not that it was containing anything too explicitly cut out, and also in the film's original 166 aspect ratio, which is the European aspect ratio, anamorphically presented, which means there are some thin black bands on the sides of 16:9 monitors. In a rare production goof, the solitary original German soundtrack is mistakenly labeled as English on this metadata. Despite that, it sounds decent enough with the right amount of age to it, and the English subtitles are burnt into the film, which makes upripping it for one's personal archive a somewhat easier task, and also better looking than the ones used for Umbrella's earlier release of Vampires Lesbos. Like I already mentioned, there's no supplement on the DVD, and I'm not going to review the Blu-ray release since I'm a DVD man and I simply don't have that disc. Okay, so I give Sheep Kill and Ecstasy a D+, 3 out of 10. It's disappointingly mediocre. Okay, hope you guys enjoy that. If you have any questions, comments, or associated truth as review subject, drop me a line in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. Hope you guys are staying safe, take it easy, and see ya.